that, I would like to introduce Robert Sweetman, who is our guest tonight. Robert joined the Navy at 28 years old and became a Navy SEAL. By 29, he completed BUDS Class 284, where he sustained a quadruple hernia requiring surgery. He served for 8 years, where he did 2 deployments with SEAL Team 7 and became an instructor at Advanced Training Command. He was medically retired after back injury, but had multiple other hidden injuries. Those included post-traumatic stress disorder, traumatic brain injury, obstructive sleep apnea, and insomnia. Robert tells the story of using Ambien to go to sleep and stimulants to wake up. At one point, he was using NyQuil to go to sleep at night. Then, on April 23, 2017, one of Robert's platoon mates, Ryan Larkin, took his own life. Ryan had been struggling with sleep for a long time, along with PTSD and TBI. Robert was impacted by Ryan's death and took it upon himself to better understand why this had happened. Ryan's father, Frank, launched research on TBI while Robert dove into sleep science. After years of research, Robert discovered the bi-directional relationship between sleep and mental health. Poor sleep can cause mental health conditions to include suicidality. Robert dedicated his life to the study of sleep science to help all people, especially veterans. 4 years later, he founded 62 Romeo. Robert's research surrounded the impact of light, sound, and temperature on the neurological function of sleep. This became one of the pillars of 62 Romeo. He quickly realized that most people did not understand how sleep works, so he created the second pillar, sleep education. Then he noticed the most common problem with sleep was anxiety before bed. So he found the best relaxation coaches in the world and added the third pillar, relaxation techniques. Finally, Robert discovered that the psychology of sleep had an incredible impact on sleep. So he added techniques from cognitive behavioral therapy for insomnia, CBTI, as a fourth pillar. These 4 pillars made the foundation for the 62 Romeo program and are responsible for the incredible success it has achieved. With that great introduction, Robert, thank you for joining us tonight.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate such a warm welcome. All of that makes me sound pretty good, right? Pretty smart, but that's not the case. I just have really good people around me. Hey, do me a favor. Sit down for a second. Come on. So I just had really good people around me, and I just copied all the good work that they had, right? Scholarly journals, brilliant PhDs that are out there doing good work, but you know what? A lot of times the work that they're doing in an academic setting never gets to us, gets to the guys and gals on the ground, right? And it definitely never gets implemented into things called scheduling or watch cycles, right? And some of that's improving. So all I wanted to do was gather all of the science out there and present it in a way from peer to peer that people could palate that, right? That they could consume that and apply it in their life. A lot of the program that Lori and I run is heavily dependent on the person, right? And from the time we start screening people, we hammer that, right? It's like, look, this is not a pill that you're going to take and feel a different way. This is your life. And these are the choices that you make. And we'll arm you and equip you with the information. And then it's your job to make the right choice. But there's so many tools that we throw at people through this program that there's no way that everyone will get everything. But we give people, more tools for their tool bag than they'll need. And they kind of pick and choose, like, what's the most important thing, what the issues are in your life with your sleep and things that you pick up on during the program. And so you get to choose which tools apply to your situation the best. So this is Robbie, by the way. He's the boss.
I'm 3.
He's 3. Don't we love our new virtual world? Where I think this is normal. I don't know.
It's normal for me. New normal.
It's the new normal. He gets double energy when I'm on video. I noticed that.
It's funny how that happens.
Yeah, so that's kind of an intro into what we do with the 62 Romeo sleep program. But I'm happy to talk about um, more of the visceral experience that brought me to like, I'm dedicating my life to this, or some of the loss that I'm seeing because we have sort of optics on a lot of veteran and first responder communities. I can talk about that. Or really answer any questions that you guys have. Does that sound okay?
Yeah, that sounds great. So I would like to just say, I know, Rob, I met you on you were a guest on the Power of Our Story a while back, and you were during one of the other segments that we hosted. And I got to hear about how you ran the power or the 62 Romeo program. And I kind of tucked it back in my brain. And I was like, yeah, that sounds like a cool program. Like maybe I don't know, maybe one day I'll look into it. And I have to say, I know I've had a few people on here reach out to me and ask me, what was it like? Was it worth it? What did you go through? And so I think there are quite a few people wondering about the process itself. So I was kind of hoping that you could maybe expand a little bit on that when you're done being a parent.
Um, he's finding unique ways to destroy stuff in the kitchen. He loves it. Give me attention.
No.
But this is such a special age. He'll be 4 in 2 weeks. So within the program, within 62 Romeo, the secret to the whole thing is that it's 6 weeks, right? So we know because we've read The Power of Habit or any of these, habit type of books, Atomic Habits, that it takes 3 or 4 weeks, maybe 5 weeks, 6 weeks to establish a habit, right? We need consistent practice, and then that reward system. That's just the way we're wired as humans. And so after we do something for a period of time, and we do it correctly, then we start to see the physiological benefits from that. For example, if you join the gym, I used to work at a gym in my 20s. Everybody went and joined in January. It was their New Year's resolution, right? Put down the chocolate and hit the gym. So, I was a personal trainer, so we selling this whole personal trainer package and all that. Personal training really made it easier for someone to have success because you could hold them accountable. I found that folks that came in on their own, generally with partners, they'd have a better success rate. On their own, it was kind of hit or miss. But at any rate, you get in there and you start doing your bench press, your shoulder lifts, your leg extensions, whatever, and you wouldn't see results immediately. It would take time. And before you know it, all of a sudden, the workout that you started with doesn't hurt anymore, and you're actually ready to up the weight. And so with that, we've created a habit, right? And our body responds to that. So the secret of the program is that we give people enough time to make that habit take place. And when the habit instills, then we start to see the response in the sleep measurements. So one interesting thing about how we do business is because we come from an academic background, we like to measure everything and collect data on everything. And we also have a pretty refined process from start to finish. So we will start out with an enrollment call, and we will ensure that people meet the criteria, right? If you have issues with alcohol, that really needs to be addressed first. If you have sleep apnea, that's a serious issue. That'll kill you. And if, for example, you're not using the CPAP or whatever the prescription is that your doctor gave you, that person needs to go back and see their doctor. But then once they get started, and everybody kind of gets the same enrollment call, we'll start with sleep measurement equipment, and we'll measure every single day, 42 days, to the best of our ability, and we'll calculate what the numbers are saying. So that's objective measurements. Subjectively, subjective measurements are equally as important. So what do I mean by subjective? Well, objective is unbiased, raw data. Subjective is how we feel about our sleep situation. So each morning we have an automated service that pings the individual, and they get a chance to tell their story of the power of their story each morning. And it'll be things like, you know, what time did you go to bed? What time did you wake up? How much sleep did you get? What was the quality of your sleep? Did you do the relaxation technique that we're working on right now? And so, you know, all that stuff is timestamped so we can see what they're supposed to be doing, where they're at. And oh, by the way, the data often from the sleep measurement device often looks different than what people think. So they may feel like they didn't get any sleep, but the data is showing something different. That's something that we see a lot of. And so to correlate those two pieces of data points, two pieces of data each day, it gives us 42 days to really map out and show a trend. Like, did the person go up, go down across a number of different sleep measurements? We also do clinical surveys before and after the program. And so we can kind of see from start to finish how the person is doing. And I think, Mandy, did you say you do some clinical work? Yeah, so we do like Pittsburgh Sleep Index. So we do Insomnia Index, general anxiety, stuff like that, the GAD. So we're just using regular surveys so that when we collect that information, that's translatable to other folks in the space. They can be like, oh, that's a pretty big delta from start to finish. They're saying that, you know, their depression is completely gone, their insomnia is completely gone, things like that. So we're doing our best to measure. That makes us much different than most programs, because most programs kind of want to throw spaghetti at the wall and see what sticks, and they have great protocols, but are they really working? And so we want to prove when we fail and when we succeed, and that keeps us honest, right? Beyond that, we like to put the heavy work up front because we need time to establish those habits. And as the sessions go on, it gets a little bit more lightweight. We start to get into the nuances of sleep. And by the time folks are done, we've given them enough information where we feel comfortable calling them our sleep ambassadors, and we send them out into the world to spread the good word. And a lot of folks are coming back and asking for help putting together their own presentations to their own departments to move the needle on shift work, on conditions within their departments. And people are listening. So we're having this ripple effect. It's actually, it's a really cool place to be in where we're at right now, to see this impact.
I think that's so great. Thank you for sharing that. I also wanted to give Lori a chance if you wanted to add anything, Lori. So when I went through the program, I had the pleasure of having both Rob and Lori in my group, and it was great to have the support from both of them. So Lori, is there anything that you want to add?
Basically what I've seen is that it really depends on the person as far as the success of the program or not. And it's that dedication to themselves of saying yes and putting in the work, putting in the reps at the gym. Because I loved it when I first heard Rob say it's what you do during the day that sets you up for what kind of sleep you're going to have at night. And that is so true. And it's a matter of, you know, being a grown-up and really paying attention to what your habits are. And the great thing is because of the 42 days, and since the focus is on sleep, people are more cognizant. I know I was more cognizant of what I'm doing, what time I'm going to sleep, if I cut corners, and how that affected me and the kind of sleep that I've been getting. And I'm still toying around with like what works and what doesn't work. I remember when Rob mentioned something about earbuds. I'm like, oh, my ears are sensitive, whatever. And then I finally gave it a good try and they got used to it. And it's made a world of difference as far as in this old 1900s house that has like nothing for walls or insulation. it makes a really big difference. So yeah, that's what my 2 cents.
I have to agree with you, Lori. I think that it's great that you guys gave us all these different options, and some, we would spend a week trying, the different breathing techniques or the relaxation techniques, and then we could kind of customize from there of which ones worked best for us. But then it was also a sense of accountability when you guys took us through the different types of food and drink, and how, drinking, I'm a big coffee drinker, so how that could affect me if I were to continue to drink coffee in the afternoon. So if I didn't drink coffee and had some good night's sleep, it was kind of like, okay, maybe you need to think about that correlation. So I think you're absolutely right about that. Um, is there anybody that has any specific questions they want to ask Rob or Lori right now?
I do.
Go ahead, Mandy.
Send it, Miss
A
Love.
couple questions. How are you, Robert? How are you?
Great.
So do the people, is this something you do on Zoom with a group, or you do it individually? They have to be in the presence of you. How does that manifest? How do you?
Ooh, I love this question. You know, I love our clinical workers, and I love our, CBTI therapists. I do. We have a epidemic on our hands, a global epidemic, but definitely in every first world country. So if we look at the United States, the CDC throws out stuff like a third of the people are short sleeping. I get into debates on how much sleep an individual needs all the time. So, but what we do know is that, especially in high stress jobs, who has a high stress job? Everybody in the United States. It seems like sometimes we see anxiety issues, we see sleeplessness, and a lot of those are comorbid. So when we look at like, what is the solution, right? And I'm getting to the answer to the question. I want, I'm a team guy. I don't really care, what else is, I do care what else is out there, but I just want to cut to the chase and get to, hey, what is going to stop my buddy from killing himself? What is going to help this epidemic? And the medical community has not been able to provide an answer. And my attempt to solve the problem is just this. So some of the barriers to entry that we see for CBTI, right? Well, let's take a step back. If you're fortunate enough to have something like the VA, our firefighters don't even have that, right? We have veterans getting out, they go to the VA. Most likely when they go to a sleep clinic, they're gonna, about 60% of those are gonna be OSA patients, so the sleep apnea, and they may or may not get a CPAP or some type of breathing device. About 30% are insomnia related. There's different types of insomnia, like going to bed, staying in bed, and waking up too early, that kind of thing. And then the remainder is, rare sleeping disorders. So within that 35% of insomnia or just regular sleep related issues, the doctor can give out a handout and say, hey, here's a sleep hygiene handout, try this first. But most of the time, without some instruction, that person's going to come back and say, okay, doc, give me the pill, right? So we see that pills are the most common recommendation, prescription for the folks that are coming in with insomnia or that type of sleep complaint. But the most effective is not pills, it's the CBTI, cognitive behavioral therapy for insomnia, which looks a lot like what we're doing. After we created this, I went and did the Dr. Jacobs CBTI course. That he's a Harvard professor that tested all this at the FDA level, and it turns out that we came to the same conclusion. So they're actually very, very similar. But when you look at a CBTI professional, what referral do you need to get in with that person? How much time do you need to take away from your job or from your life? Do you have to drive in? How much of a pain is it going to be? A lot of people just say, forget it. And if you're out in town, how much is your insurance going to cover? What is the copays? What is the availability? I know sometimes for the VA, I've got this number 19 tooth. I've been working on that for like a year. And this is where I practice my meditation, right? My meditation and my patience, right? You have to have patience. So I looked at these barriers to entry for a solution for the most common sleep problems. I said, okay, what can we do to change that? And so a couple of things that we did differently are we said, let's remove the need for a therapist. We love our therapist, but CBTI is extremely low impact in terms of risk. We have, 3 doctors on staff. One of them is a psychologist, a PhD psychologist, a clinical psychologist that does CBTI. She has a place here. So we have an umbrella that we can operate under. But what we want is to be able to get sleep coaches on board rather than pulling from much smaller pool of therapists. You only have a few hundred therapists, CBTI therapists across the country for millions of people that need help. So let's bring in sleep coaches. Let's remove the therapy and let's just call it sleep science, sleep education, stuff like that. So we're making it a little bit easier access for the information. Then let's remove the barrier of entry with cost, right? Insurance or VA approvals or referrals or all this mess that I get confused and lost with. So we're bringing in donors to take care of cost. So the individual that's coming to us, there's zero cost, right? And we've actually considered adding on a small price tag to help out with not only buy-in for the program, but to kind of stretch things a little bit more. But we do everything at cost, so it's very inexpensive. So the next thing, kind of getting back to your question, is how do we make this even easier? Well, people are doing it from the comfort of their own home. They're doing it from a Zoom call. So these are group sizes of 15 people, all on a Zoom call, which has its own problems. If you have a rainstorm outside, I've had a bad connection and it makes things difficult. But for the most part, it's the easiest way we can all connect. And then finally, and this could be the most important part of this, is that this is peer-to-peer work. So if I, remember I'm back in the SEAL teams and I go to the SEAL Team 7 site, that person may be under pressure from the commander. I've seen that before. They may have guidelines, they may have restrictions, they may have an agenda, they may have this or that. But one thing's for sure, when I walk into that office, that person's wearing a white coat with a clipboard, and there's a barrier, a trust barrier. There's a difficulty in communication barrier just because we haven't been in the same shoes. And so if I'm a Navy SEAL and I just graduated, right now we're graduating a cohort of only Navy SEALs, do you think that they can listen to me and connect? 100%. And so we just graduated. We do our own coaching pipeline, and we have 4 certifications a person goes through. We just graduated our first firefighter. The guy's been working for over a decade in fire. He sees the problem. He goes through the program. He graduates. We send him a graduation certificate. Not everybody graduates. You have to meet the requirements. And then with that graduation certificate, he now has the ability to apply with us. He showed an interest, applied, went through the whole thing, and now he's getting his 62 Romeo coaching certificate. And now this firefighter is now going to host classes with firefighters. And so this is the way we expand exponentially, and we begin to address the epidemic. Mathematically, this is a way that we can address the epidemic. So I know that's a long-winded answer, but I hope you can agree with my sentiment there.
No, thank you for that explanation. Thank you so much.
Janet, you got a question?
Yeah, I've had a couple. I've been doing shift work for 40 years, and I have a theory that can lead also to apnea, sleep apnea. Like, I know there's a bunch of different things, but the doctor sends you to just to pick up a thing to put on and sleep 24 hours and then take it back. That doesn't tell me what's the cause. Like, I know overweight can be in that, but it's also a habit. I stopped breathing when I was on an emergency call so I could hear better. I didn't even realize I did. I'd stop at red lights and stop breathing when I was at a red light. I'd been rear-ended a couple of times. So it's like, there again, you got habits like that, but then it says I keep waking up. So there's just not enough. I know that I'm blessed, I can't take sleeping pills. I was diagnosed with fibromyalgia and didn't have and then as sleep deprivation. they gave me a small dose of sleeping pills, and I have an opposite reaction to some drugs. So I feel blessed that that's the case. But I mean, there's all these other things that play into it. So I can see the need for the call, just to explore more. But how can you talk to your doctor to say, like, can you explore more? Like, I was diagnosed with PTSD, not because they found it, it's because of a second thing that happened, that I went to a psychologist because I thought it was car accident related, that I was diagnosed. But that's what I mean, that it's like a domino effect, but also bricks that are climbed on. So I know that's kind of convoluted, but that's some of my concerns.
No, it's okay. This is always convoluted. So let me start off by saying that sleep apnea is a medical condition that is regulated in the United States. You need to be a doctor to diagnose that and to treat that. So because I'm not a doctor, I can't speak to that medically. But let me tell you anecdotally my experience. What I've seen is that when you go in to talk to your doctor about sleep apnea, and we're talking about obstructive sleep apnea, central sleep apnea is a neurological disorder, but it's a much smaller percentage of folks. Hey, can you sit down right here? And now we have the daughter just got home. So what they're probably going to say is, oh, well, you could be because you need to lose some weight, right? You're a little bit overweight and it causes breathing challenges here. And then we have, when we talk to some of the psychologists over at Camp Pendleton, which is a Marine Corps base, they say, oh, well, their body fat percentage is very low. It's because they have large neck muscles. That's what it is, right? And yeah, they will say that any male over a 17-inch neck could have a higher risk of obstructive sleep apnea. But what I'm seeing is a direct correlation between things like PTS and obstructive sleep apnea. So how is that possible if this is a physiological issue that we could have a psychological connection, right? That's not how it's defined. Well, I do have a colleague in the sleep space who has an article that I can provide for you guys after the call on the relationship between PTSD. The disorder part is after 6 months or so, it becomes a disorder, but we like to say PTS, right? We're all dealing with stress. And so there is a relationship that's been identified. Now, is that mainstream? Is that something you're going to hear from your doctor? Most likely, no. Doctors have a ton of stuff to deal with and to worry about. And a lot of times, to be perfectly honest with you, I don't think that anyone has it fully figured out. Another thing is that I have another paper from another colleague in the UK that is discussing improving sleep apnea through breathing exercises, increasing the capacity for breathing. And then finally, I'll say, I just finished that book, Breathe by James Nestor, and he talks a lot about improving sleep apnea symptoms by breathing through the nose rather than the mouth and retraining yourself to do that. So what I know is that I had sleep apnea and I don't anymore. I know that I do a ton of breathing exercises. I don't eat foods that are inflammatory to my body, which can cause issues with breathing. You get the hay fever, you get inflammation. I try to live a very healthy life, and I don't know, I'm an anomaly, right? Because I was able to get off testosterone replacement therapy that the Navy said I needed. I was able to self-heal from sleep apnea. And so, I can't give any medical advice, but I will offer hope, right? That if we continue down the path of working on ourselves and taking some of these natural modalities that aren't really, these tools really aren't available to all doctors out there, that we can see improvements. Hope that helps.
Yeah, I'd be very interested in those papers because that, like I say, I was diagnosed with fibromyalgia. I did stuff and healed myself from that, and the doctors didn't even want to know what I'd done. So, but it gives us tools to work with at least, and those articles would be great. Thanks so much.
Of course.
David.
Hey, thanks, Robert, for joining us. This is a fascinating conversation for so many reasons for me. not to mention that I think it's super cool that you're hanging out in an RV and camping with your family, and I'm super jealous about that. But gosh, you said so many things that have resonated with me and piqued my interest. The non-personal one is the peer-to-peer model that you guys have going on. I think that's really special. And I think it's so important, as you can see just from this environment here, how well the peer-to-peer works. I'm sure you see the same results through your program. And when we do the resiliency stuff, that's all peer-to-peer as well. Oh, you guys just all moved around on me. That was weird. The peer-to-peer model works really well. And I know it's at the behest of the academic community, and they absolutely hate it and will tell you it doesn't work because we're killing their jobs. But the peer-to-peer model is incredible, and thank you for pushing it in that direction. I think that works really well. So on a more personal note, the reason that this is so fascinating to me is I'm still in a space where I need light and the TV on to sleep.
Hold on one second, David.
Yeah, he
Sorry.
disappeared.
I think he froze, and so he's probably trying to log back in. So I want to give you the chance to talk with him once he gets back on. But I did want to let you guys know that a lot of you know the problems that I was dealing with the PTSD. I had nightmares. I was on medication prescribed for it. It would take me almost 2 hours to fall asleep. I would be up really early. I never felt rested. I just had a plethora of problems. When I went to 62 Romeo, I had a talk with Robert, and I went into the program completely cut off of all my medication. I weaned myself off. I wanted to go ahead and just give this 100% just me into it. And I learned so many techniques, and to see my progress on a graph for those of us who have those brains where we want to see that visual, like right there in front of you, can't deny it. And I've been out of the program, Lori, I don't even remember when our graduation date was, but I still have the app that tells me every morning how I slept the night before, how many interruptions I had, how my breathing was. And I found so many techniques. I've never had to go back on my medication for the nightmares. I have not had any nightmares since the sleep. My fiance, Kyle, has told me, like, you sleep like a freaking log now. And I was the lightest sleeper in the whole entire world. I mean, like, a mouse would sneeze and I'd be awake. So the great thing about it too is when you have a partner who is supportive of it, Kyle actually picked up some techniques. And so now we both have benefited from it. And so I can't speak highly enough. I won't put my name behind something that I don't fully agree with, but this program, if you guys are able to do it, I mean, I think that it's well worth it. It's 1 hour a week where you meet with your group, and I'm still in contact with the group. It's something, another type of bond that we have. So any questions about the actual program, and I'm very open to share what symptoms I had and what symptoms I no longer have. So
While we wait for Robert to get on here or back on, we do have a spouses program. So for the individual that isn't a veteran or isn't a first responder, and they do have a partner that they cohabitate with, we invite them to either sit in on the cohort, or the partner can share the Zoom recording with their spouse. So then everybody's in the know as far as what we're teaching you, and then they get the reasons why we're asking you to implement some changes. So what we find is, obviously, when everybody's on the same team and understands the reasoning behind it, it promotes compliance a lot better. And we see that, it just makes things a lot easier at the home front and for making changes, as well as the, in-house accountability partner. So
and
we
Lori,
highly encourage that for everybody.
I gotta tell you too, like I know Robert's back on, so I want to let David finish, but I gotta share that the sleep mat that you guys send that records all our information. After I graduated the program, Kyle asked me to switch it over to his side of the bed, and we actually recorded for 2 weeks of how his sleep is, and then he was able to implement changes. And all of my kids only read by amber light at night now. So yes, it's a family thing. Start that good
makes me
generation.
so happy. So happy.
Rob, David was chatting with you once it looks like your video had cut out and then you left us for a bit.
Yeah, I guess you guys didn't like what I was saying, right?
I mean, you left us. We didn't leave you. I'm just saying.
Okay, it's me, not you.
Where did we drop off there?
You were about to say something incredible, life-changing, and then boop, I think someone may have pulled the plug. I'm not pointing any fingers.
Did you hear the peer-to-peer part or no?
No, I didn't hear anything.
All right. So I'll go backwards. So I think the peer-to-peer model that you guys are doing is freaking awesome. Did he freeze again? It must be me talking.
Maybe it's your voice.
Computer.
I'm
My
gonna
good
blame it
looks
on
break the
Michelle
screen.
because
I don't know.
Michelle
Oh.
keeps having the.
It's not me. It's because David probably took too many notes.
David's putting him to sleep. He's got that voice, you know.
Oh.
I don't know. Well,
And
maybe
maybe
can
Lori could
some of
answer the questions.
I was gonna say maybe Lori can go answer some of the questions in the meantime.
I'm not the sleep scientist, but I could give it a damn good go.
Yeah.
And he can always watch the recording and then answer later.
Yeah. Now I was saying before, we might as well just keep going, but
there we go.
I'm in a
coming
position where I still need oh, he's back. There you go.
Okay.
Okay, for real this time.
Now, as I was saying before, the peer-to-peer model has been awesome. I'm so glad that that's working for you guys because it's such a special way for people with like-minded goals and objectives and histories to connect and support each other, you know, which is kind of the model we do here. But on the resiliency side, peer-to-peer has been really effective. What it's doing, though, is really pissing off the academic community because we're putting them out of jobs. So they're kind of poo-pooing it on the with the resiliency program, but we're proving them wrong every day. And it's been just happy you guys found that as a useful model because I think it really works. So kudos to you for that. For me, I'm still kind of a train wreck with my sleep. I've been retired a little over 3 years now. And I still need the lights on and the TV on to fall asleep. And I use it primarily to quiet my brain because I'm finding that when it's dark and there's no sound is the loudest noise I've ever heard. And at which point I can't sleep. So I definitely want to learn more as through this conversation and maybe offline from you on, you know, how to flip that switch. And I also find too that when I come to my breaking point with sleep and I haven't slept in a while, that I'm using melatonin to kind of like hit the reset button for a cycle or two of sleep, and then you know the whole thing starts all over again, which sounds like would be not your recommendation. And I'd love to find and learn techniques from you that to break the melatonin cycle. I'm interested in hearing about foods. Because I think I'd be curious to understand what your food list looks like with the reducing the inflammation and stuff like that. I too have been put on the testosterone replacement therapies, and which I don't know that it's helpful. So I'd be curious to understand how that is affecting sleep from your research, and when you got off of that, how that then went for the rest of your body. As far as you know, keeping the weight down and muscle growth and stuff like that.
Yeah, well,
I know it's a lot.
No, that's okay. So can you hear me okay?
Got you.
Okay. So sleep will impact all endocrine function. Sleep will impact your testosterone. So if you can't get your sleep right, everybody is frozen. Can you guys still hear me?
We
Yeah.
hear.
Yeah, we can hear you loud and clear, bro.
Okay, good. Must be solar flares over here. Yeah, so if your sleep is not what it should be, then yeah, you're going to show, it's likely that you'll show hormone issues, right? So then if you can't get your sleep right, and the sleep docs, if they send you over to a urology clinic or whatever, and then they send you to a sleep study or whatever the process is for you, and you don't improve the sleep, then it's possible that they put you on testosterone replacement therapy. Again, I'm not a medical doctor, and this is a conversation you need to have with your doctor. But if I don't know what the situation is, like why you were put on testosterone replacement therapy, but what I do know is that poor sleep impacts everything in your system in a huge way. Testosterone, human growth hormone, leptin, ghrelin, everything is impacted. So, based on what you're telling me, there might be some room for improvement on the sleep. And I would just say that, if you're interested in rogering up for the program, it is 62r.org. And, I can sit here and tell you a couple of tips and tricks and stuff like that. But the beautiful thing about the 62 Romeo process is that we have this container, right? And when you commit to entering into this space, okay, now it's go time. And it's much easier when you have, a sleep coach holding you accountable. And then we can start to implement things in our sleep dojo that are conducive to good, healthy sleep. We know that light, sound, and temperature impact our sleep in a big way, all in different ways, as well as other things like smell too. We don't really get into smell in the program, but then we look at behaviors, right? Not just behaviors, physical behaviors that you do throughout the day, because those are very important. But what are the thoughts that we're having on a regular basis, specifically how they're associated with sleep? I mean, thoughts are things, and all of these, components that lead up to poor sleep. If we tweak them and improve them and work on them, the net result is better sleep. And so I like sort of guiding people towards the 62 Romeo program, because once you step into that container, that's your space to really work on this, versus like, let's just try one thing and see if it helps, and then it doesn't help and get frustrated, and you're like, well, just forget it, right? If we can start a program from start to finish, I mean, just being in a program in general, no matter what program it is, increases the likelihood of you improving, in this case, your sleep. But with the recommendations and the data and all the stuff that we have, the likelihood of you getting, I mean, we average like 20 or 30% improvement across the board in sleep. I mean, that's clinically significant, right? And that's a big claim to make, right? But we're seeing people that completely reshape their lives. I've seen people that come in, they're only sleeping like 45 minutes at a time. I've seen multiple situations like this, right? And then by the time they're done with the program, they're sleeping through the entire night. You want to talk about a life-changing experience? I mean, this is, saving marriages and improving energy. And oh, by the way, reducing mishaps. All the mishaps we know are when we get into that red zone from fatigue. That's a big topic we talk about in the Navy. So I would just encourage you to maybe take a look at the program. I'd be happy to give tips and tricks, but within that container, we can see a ton of progress start to finish. And you just really give yourself, okay, this is the time, I'm going to do it from start to finish. We got this program, and you just see just how good you can get your sleep. Is that helpful?
Yeah, no, I'm certainly going to research it further and through the organization. What does the funding model for you look like? Is it the individual participant, or is it through a nonprofit? How does that?
We are a nonprofit, and we are a faith-based organization. We're not necessarily evangelist, but we're doing God's work, man. So we're not we're not trying to force anything on anybody, but we know that we're doing good work. So the big thing is you take care of your temple, right? And so we are just putting out good information and helping people get back on track. And a lot of times this saves their life or their marriage, because when the sleep improves, everything improves. I worked with a psychiatrist. He's still on the team as an advisor, but for the last 5 years. And I met him in grad school at UCSD. And he, his big thing when we would speak on this topic is that, it doesn't matter, short of schizophrenia or major bipolar disorder, like, it doesn't matter what pill he gives his patient if the sleep does not improve, the symptomology won't improve, period. However, if the sleep improves, he could be giving them a sugar pill. Most of the time the symptoms improve, right? Because sleep is there's such a strong relationship between sleep health and mental health. Obviously, you guys know the story of my friend committing suicide. I thought that there was something that was related to sleep with his situation. And I found out that it's not just, hormones like we talked about, or, making gains in the gym. That's a big deal. Your muscles recover during sleep, but there's also a strong relationship to mental health. So I feel like sleep is the fountain of youth. It can solve so many different problems if we're not, in fact, getting good sleep. There's a lot of other things. We don't dig too much into nutrition in the program. We don't get too much into things like meditation and exercise. We just touch on them a little bit, but we definitely focus on relaxation techniques and what the science, what these beautiful PhDs that are doing good research are telling us. They're indicating like, hey, you should look at this. We provide that for our participants. And as the science changes, so is the message, right? We're trying to have cutting edge information. And that's why we don't end our community when you get your graduate certificate. We continue the signal channel so people can keep talking. And then we throw graduates into an entire graduate channel. And as the program grows, we'll start to segment. Maybe we'll do some first responder channels, stuff like that. But that makes this a community, right? This makes this a continuum of care. So that, like Lori just dropped some Andrew Huberman on the channel this morning or yesterday or whenever. He's talking about some good stuff, right? What is his morning routine? So in that way, we're building a community. We can all continue to communicate and drop those articles and ask questions, and maybe we get off track and we're not doing so well. It's easy to come back into a group because now we have a family, a group of people that all know the deal with sleep. And we all also know the deal with not doing so well, right? We actually invite people to come back to classes if they want a fresh start, to do it again. I mean, how hard is it to just have somebody join a Zoom call? It's pretty easy. So, I mean, I think our Zoom maxes out at like 500 people, and we have classes of 15. So I think we have a little bit of room.
Awesome. Chris, go ahead.
Cool. Thank you, Michelle. Robert, again, thanks for being here. Big fan of the team. So thank you for your service and all that stuff. It's good stuff. I love it. So for me, I'm a high energy guy. I don't feel like I sleep that well, but I'm sure that I sleep better than I think. I've got kind of a whole different angle to the question I'm going to ask you. As a protector, if you will, I kind of feel like I'm afraid, and I'm going to throw you under the bus, Michelle, of sleeping like a log, because God forbid something happens, I might miss it. You know what I mean? Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And I'm afraid that if I'm out and, somebody gets hurt on my watch, so to speak, i.e. my girlfriend, I don't know how I'm going to deal with that. So my question for you really is, can you still be a light sleeper and still get good sleep? That makes sense.
Yeah. Chris, it's this is not a foreign topic. As protectors and working a career of always being in a tuned up fight or flight hypervigilant state, right? Because in the military, we have attention to detail and situational awareness. And that those don't aid us in relaxation and preparing for sleep at all. And so over a career, it's fine when we're 20, but over a career of this constantly being on watch and aware, we are the protectors, right? It doesn't allow us enough down regulation, right? And we become, our neural pathways in our brain become attuned to responding to our amygdala function, right? We're codifying all of our experiences with emotions, and that's what's kept me alive downrange, right? Because your spidey senses, right? But we can't live that way forever. We have to engage the prefrontal thinking, which is top-down thinking. It allows us to be in that sympathetic, that parasympathetic nervous system state, rest and digest, they call it. And that's where we want to be leading up to sleep. So it's okay to be able to turn it off, right? There's value in being able to rest and recover. If we're always on guard and we're always protecting, then we don't give ourselves enough time to recover. Perhaps we're not getting enough downtime, right? So there's value in both. And if we are literally wired, and by the way, we might be addicted to being the protector, to always being keyed up. Maybe it's cortisol. I was addicted for a long time to just adrenaline, right? Just getting after it. I want to go on another mission. I want to get deployed again, even if the risk is very high. So taking a step back, do you want to, run a bike or a race vehicle with dirty oil or low on gas? Is that how you're going to start a supercross race or whatever? And the answer is no. And so why would we do that to our body? We don't want to be running on half empty or not have optimal cognitive function. When we're not getting rest and recovery, then everything starts to fall apart. We know this because when we measure folks that are sleep deprived or aren't getting restorative sleep, we can measure it through what's called a psychomotor vigilance task. Think of it like, if you remember a couple years back, we had Lumosity on the computer, and you just click, click, click. And I guess if you do it enough, you get smarter and faster. But we can measure that. I think there's a free one on Apple from NASA. I think it's just PVT. So you can download that and try it. But what we see is that after about 20 hours of wakefulness, that you have the same cognitive performance as someone who is legally inebriated, 0.08 alcohol. And so when we look specifically, we have a ton of fires. If you look at fire service and they, let's say they have a 7248 or a 4824, whatever, they're working that shift. If they've been awake for more than 20 hours and they're an engineer and they're barreling down the road in a 20-ton missile, do you think that's okay? Because we're telling people they can't drink and drive with a 0.08 blood alcohol content, but yet we're letting sleep-deprived engineers barrel down the road on call in the middle of the night. We always get the 2 a.m. calls. I won't go any further on that, but what I would encourage you to do is take a look at okay, I can be the protector, but how can I be the best protector? And the way to be the best protector is to get maximum recovery, maximum sleep, get the recovery that you need so that you can be 100% of the person that you want to be. And so that does take some skills and some techniques when you come from a career of always being on, right? And so that's like some of the relaxation techniques we talk about, that's some of the behavioral techniques we talk about. The things that we do throughout the day are going to get us to that point when we're supposed to successfully fall asleep and get, not light sleep, but get that deep sleep, get that REM sleep, get full sleep cycles, and get that recovery that we need. And if you slip into what we call a hypnagogic state, if you slip into a hypnagogic state while you're sympathetic, your autonomic nervous system is in a sympathetic state, right? a lot of times we see things like increased noradrenaline levels in the brain. We see light, more nights, and people have more awake, stuff like that. So there is a lot of benefit to having a wind down period before bed, taking it seriously, cutting down the lights. The blue light is not good for us. Just winding down. And within that, now we can add in some relaxation techniques. I know it sounds silly, it's a little bit woo-woo or whatever, but if we can do these techniques and we can downregulate, we give ourselves the best chance to slipping into sleep, having successful sleep. And there's, of course, more than just that. But if we can get that full recovery, now we're reducing the deleterious effects of sleep deprivation. Like, we're mitigating the risk of hypertension and cancer and all these things that are related to poor sleep. And it's not just mental, your whole physical everything starts to fall apart. And we don't even notice it until, we've had a career, and now we're 40, 50, and we start to see some of this stuff pop up. We're like, where did this come from? Let me fix it right now with a pill. No. That's not the solution. But we do have ways that we can start to get back on track and get some healing through sleep, the way that we're designed to function. So I hope that wasn't too contradictory, Chris. I just want to. So
that's good stuff. I love it. Thank you for the information. I'm going to look into it. So appreciate it.
Of course, and I appreciate the work you're doing. Everybody has amazing stories, by the way. I'm loving all the service. Way more years than I put in. So I appreciate it, guys and gals.
Okay. Well, first of all, Rob, thank you for being here, and Lori too. I was a little late joining, so I was actually at Home Depot and doing a little bit of training with my daughter's service dog, so that was fun. So I missed intros. So I've been a nurse for 16 years. I did 13 years in cardiology, and then I took a little bit of time off to do marketing and event planning, and then went back to nursing at COVID during COVID, and now I do pediatric home care. And for a while, I was doing night shift for almost 2 years, and I finally had to get out of doing night shift last year because it was killer on my body. And I knew that going into nursing, I was fortunate when I first started nursing that I didn't have to work night shift because I kind of knew it was going to be killer on my body. But going back, that's just kind of what worked for me and my family. But yeah, there would be days, weekends that I was up for literally 36 hours because I would work and then I would come home and then I would have to be a mom and be a parent. And I was going on 36 hours before I was sleeping, sometimes 48 actually. It was really, really bad. So I was really excited, to have you guys here tonight and listen to this. One thing that I would love to validate, being a nurse of Western medicine, but being a practitioner of yoga and other Eastern medicines, one of my biggest frustrations is that there is a lot of trying to get people to fit in the box, and we just don't all fit in the box. And so one of my very early on philosophies of my nursing practice is the biggest variable in medicine is the human body. Everybody has all their different quirks, all their different things, and there's really no one size fits all for individuals. And coming from the cardiology background, I really wish there would have been a program like this that I could have referred patients to, because I know that sleep and better sleep would have helped so many of my cardiology patients. So I'm really excited that you guys are here. I don't know, I missed if you guys have done like a nursing round of like just all nurses. If not, I'd love to be a part of it. I'd also love to recruit a lot of other nurses. I think there's a couple of good organizations that that you could work with, because I will definitely say that nurses, the other mantra, nurses make the worst patients. I lived that as my identity for so long. And last year I decided that wasn't going to be my identity anymore. And so nursing is finally like starting to build the resiliency programs that like police and fire already have. I mean, they're a couple of years ahead of us. as far as that goes. And so I would love to just hear kind of where you guys are at with working as nurses, if you need introductions to people, and would love to be a part of the program because my sleep sucks. So yeah, that's me rambling on.
I do have an answer for that. So go to 62r.org and sign up. Lori, do I already have a category for doctors and nurses? If not,
I believe I'll add it tonight.
okay.
I believe there was a medical one.
I think I can't remember if we did or not, but so it is in our it is on our radar. We are about to merge into police and detention, and then doctors, nurses. We feel like those are first responders as well. I got a suggestion today to consider coroners as well, because there's a aftercare category that I was unaware of. So we're looking at everybody, and people who are not first responders need help as well. I get a lot of complaints, but I think we'll just make them pay double, right? Partially kidding, partially not kidding, but like, so yes, you are on the radar. Yes, I would encourage you to go ahead and apply so you're in the system. It's pretty easy. You just go on there and sign up. And then we have you in the CRM. As far as getting a nurse cohort kicked off, some of the paths that we're looking at right now, because we know what we're doing, but we're a scrappy startup, if you will, kind of thing. We're asking donors to pay for everything. And now we're starting to see some donor fatigue. And so then the question is, and then by the way, when you give something away for free, sometimes people don't value it. We've seen some participants come through and they're like, well, I didn't pay anything for it, so I guess I don't have to show up. We see that sometimes, and it's frustrating because we only want people that are engaged. Like, don't waste our time. We have a laundry list of people, some of them at very high risk, and you're just going to come in and kind of throw away this blessing. So I'm kind of being a little bit, I'm kind of dramatizing a little bit, but so my thoughts are, and this is one of our main donors came in and said, well, can they bear some of the burden financially? So we are considering all types of different ways to skin the cat in terms of financing. But at the end of the day, if we want to put on our big boy britches, we're going to have to get insurance approved, right? And so we're ready to do that. We're ready to get certified as a CBTI organization, and then get on the schedule for insurance, so that we can like you can send us people and they can get their insurance to potentially cover that as a CBTI. So now they get the recommendation, they get the pay. So that's one funding source. We also have educational opportunities because we give a graduation certificate after the program, and the program is well documented. For example, one person might get education stipend so long as it improves their job. Well, I can tell you that sleep will most likely improve your job. There's definitely worth a shot, right? So maybe we can get some education dollars. So that means now we can offset the money that we're getting from donors, and make this a more scalable solution. Because right now, I can tell you, we don't advertise. We have lots of applications because, if you have a good experience, you go tell all your friends, and, of course it's free. So they're like, oh, so everybody signs up. So the challenge is not getting applicants right now. We know that there's a ton of people that are in need of care. The issue is, how do we get this paid for? And the first thing is, we've cut the cost as low as we can. We're running this thing, on a shoestring, which is fine. We're able to pay the bills, but how do we transition this to a more subsisting model that can address, thousands of people instead of hundreds, now tens of thousands, and then hundreds of thousands. I feel comfortable scaling up the organization like that as a leader. I'm kind of an ops type of leader, ops guy, so I can put the right people in the right places, that kind of thing. But we're going to have to figure out ourselves through these growing pains that Lori was kind of alluding to, figure out multiple funding lanes, because the people are there. They need it. I mean, like you're telling me right now, and I'd love to put together a cohort tomorrow how do we pay for it? And so that's my job right now, is to figure that out.
Yeah, and that's interesting because a lot of insurance companies are now offering coaching programs. So I know that they're starting to, see the value in that with insurance. I just don't know how you go about getting that approved for insurance to cover it. Maybe you got people working on that, but I
We are.
definitely, yeah. So it's nice. It's nice that insurance is starting to recognize that there are these other modalities that are effective in keeping people out of the hospital so that they're not having to pay out. It's to their benefit in the long run, really, for the insurance companies. So
It's true.
Melissa, go ahead.
So I want to thank you for all the information. It's wonderful. I've been struggling with sleep issues for years. So I do have a question. Once you fill out the application, what does the time frame and the next steps look like?
Right now it's been a disaster, but
Wonderful.
now that, right? I mean, Lori says that she wants to be somewhere by now, but hey guys, we've graduated 100 people through a rigorous 6-week program in what, 6 months? We're doing okay. Thank you for setting the standard and making me work hard, Lori. I appreciate it.
Yep, no slacking.
We have, so I gotta crack the whip. I gotta get to it. Yeah, we have a lot more work to do. That's one thing on the table right now. I appreciate you bringing that up, Melissa. How do we continue to improve? How do we streamline the process? And the original thinking was, well, I don't want to put people into a cohort until we have it funded. And I just want to take our time and make sure that we're not, over promising and under delivering. But now that we've kind of gotten some level of consistency, I think that we're going to set up some automations, because right now we do not have a automatic response when people finish the application. It's something that we can turn on, but as you might guess, it just costs money, right? So I think we're ready to take the next step and build in some automation. So now the automation will kick back an opportunity, an email, thank you for applying, and then an opportunity to jump on the round robin to have an enrollment call. So that means that when they have the enrollment call, then we qualify them. Not everybody qualifies. And then we throw them into a cohort. So now we have the expectation that, okay, now we're forming a cohort. Maybe we don't have to give the start date immediately, but we need to stay in communication with these people, and we need to have the cohort funded. And so that's kind of our some of our operational workflow. And so I hope to clean up a lot of that actually this month, and have a much better customer experience, if you will, from start to finish. It's a little clunky right now. I know that, but like I said, we're a scrappy small organization that just graduated our 100th person. So we're getting there. Thanks for the question.
Okay, thank you.
Lisa.
Hi, Robert and Lori. I'm so nice to have you here tonight. I've struggled with insomnia since my firstborn, which is 1987, and I've been on trazodone ever since. I would like your opinion on taking that long term. I know it's a safe tricyclic, but the side effects, and I'd like to know, do you feel like being on trazodone, I can get the full restorative sleep that I need?
That's a dangerous area because we don't want to give medical advice, but I will say that we have the ability to control things a lot more than we give ourselves the opportunity to do sometimes. And sometimes that just means we need somebody to help us, or we need a different skill set, or maybe there's something that we're missing. I mean, we're talking about unprecedented stress in the world these days, right? And I can't imagine the changes within your body after giving birth. I just can't imagine it. But what I do know is that today, right now, we've never seen stress like this before. It's weird. Like, just social media is in our face all day, every day. We live in a country that is pressuring us to just go, 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 forget about sleep because you have to make a paycheck. And oh, by the way, our dollar doesn't go anywhere. You know, I'm in San Diego, friggin' house is $1 million and I can't hardly make X number of dollars a year. It's a struggle. So we have all of this stress. And so my personal opinion for myself is that at all cost, I want to avoid putting those substances in my system, just because there is a time and there is a place and there is a value, right? But when we start to take it long term, I think what we see is a psychological dependency. No matter what it is, it could be a sugar pill for that matter. And so, like, when we encounter folks that have something that they really like for sleep, but they're not quite getting the good sleep that they want, and we're like, oh yeah, well, that particular thing doesn't actually help you with your sleep. Not talking about your situation, it could be anything, right? Melatonin, chamomile, and chamomile is actually not bad, but there can build a psychological association with, oh, I don't have my chamomile, I can't go to sleep, and then they can't go to sleep, right? So the thoughts that we have about these things and the relationship go well beyond just the chemical interaction with your brain and your body. So there's a lot there. It's a conversation that you have to have with your doctor, right? Because we live in a medically controlled environment in the United States. But I would say that practices within yoga and breathing and meditation can bring you to a place that you have ultimate control over your arousal, ultimate control over your relaxation. I didn't think that was true, and I am a testament of that today. That we have a lot more. It's not easy, but we have a lot more control than we think we do. And so I just want to offer you a little bit of hope. If it's something, if you ever wanted to do a step down program on the trazodone, I think that's what you said you're taking with your doctor, and maybe try out, something like 62 Romeo. We've got your back. Like, I want you to succeed and hit your goals. You don't, I can't speak for your medical, situation and the background and everything else, but I've seen some pretty gnarly situations, and we have more power to heal ourselves within ourselves, especially through sleep, than a lot of times we give ourselves credit for. So I wouldn't give up hope.
Thank you for that. I really appreciate that. And I mean, they get me by, but I'm with you. The less that's in my body, the better, as far as substances and chemicals and all that. But yeah, I mean, so what's that, like 36 years I've been on it? I'd love to get off it and just have a natural restorative sleep and just feel good when I wake up without the sedating effects and all that, So thank you for your comments on that.
That sounds like a beautiful goal. I think we can achieve it. I think so.
Awesome. That's very, very encouraging.
Well, Robert, Lori, I just want to thank both of you guys so much for coming and representing 62 Romeo, letting us know what it's about. As someone who graduated, I highly encourage anyone who's having sleep problems to sign up and hopefully be able to get in on a cohort pretty soon. Also, for any of the people out there who have just $1 million to drop and they want to support a great program, 62 Romeo would be certainly glad to receive that. But thank you guys again, and thank everyone for joining. And you can catch more of our Power of the Story Coffee and Conversation recordings on our YouTube channel.